PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. Have a look at this position from the game Kramnik Ulipin from 1992. White to play. Can you think of a move for white? What did Kramnik do next? And can you think of a plan for white as well? I had the pleasure of discussing this position with international master Thomas Willemze, who has authored this excellent book, World Chess Champion Strategy Training for Club Players. Really excellent work, very clear explanations and very clearly laid out as well. Available from New in Chess. I'll put the link down there. So Thomas gave this position as one of the exercises in the book, and we set this as a test on the live broadcast. I found it interesting that most viewers failed to spot the move, although we looked at this position for a long time. I think a couple of viewers suggested the correct continuation, but only because they'd seen the game before. So here's a short extract from the live broadcast where we take you through the game, and at the end I'll point out some further examples of this strategic idea if you want to look them up and do your own research. Enjoy. Thomas, what do you think of h4?
The question is what you're up to do next, because it's also quite a committal move. So yeah, I think you have to be careful not to have your pawns blocked too much, because then the knights will become even more stable. So at some point, we need to be careful here. And there's also a lot of pressure on the e-pawn. So I'm not sure about this position, but knight takes g3 might become tricky in some occasions.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because g3 is... So obviously king f2 doesn't work because of rook e2 check, so I guess the king comes back. Yeah, I mean, it must be good for white, but sometimes but you have to be careful.
From now on, you have to watch it every move, and that's a pity, I think.
I think h5 is a good move, actually.
Yeah, because it block the pawns.
Could be useful to use that square, actually, at some moment. So h4, interesting. No one has come up with this. Does that surprise you, Thomas? When you give this as a training exercise, do you find your students often get this one, or is this a bit of a mystery?
This is a tough one. This is a very tough one, and I think the book has a combination of exercises where it's a bit easier. It makes sense to prove your worst piece, or more easy exercises, and there are also more difficult ones. It's definitely a difficult one, but also one that if you try to solve it and maybe fail to solve it and look for the answer, you've definitely learned something, because it gives you new ideas in your games. So I think this is such a exercise. It's no problem not to find the answer, because it will help you anyway, simply by learning from Kramnik.
Joshua P. It's interesting, actually, because there have been such a range of answers. So we've got another idea. Joshua Pim suggests f3 and e4. What do you think of f3?
It's a pity for the bishop on g2, because it's blocking its view. And it might have some concrete issues with the e-pawn being weak. I want to play e4, maybe f5 is coming at some point.
Yes, I wonder if... I'm not sure which one, but okay, we'll play back here.
Yeah, maybe c5, yeah.
And then, well, yes, obviously this one lands in white in big trouble. And otherwise, well, okay, you can play bishop d4, but somehow, well, if we can grab one of those bishops, then black has certainly achieved something. So yeah,
you can always play f5 and attack it later.
Indeed, yes, f5 potentially a good move as well. So no, not f3. Very interesting. Let me just... Script Nerd asks, can you please tell us what should we look at in such positions? So, I mean, I think we can... Shall we reveal the answer?
Yeah, I think I can give one hint, because
okay,
I already explained our pieces are doing wonderful. So it doesn't make sense to move one of our pieces. So a pawn move is definitely one to look at. A3, B4 is a place to start, but when we play B4 and black plays rook A8, we cannot really make progress. So at some point we have to draw the conclusion we need to switch to the other side of the board and play on the king side. And our aim would be to open up files and diagonals for our long-range pieces, because that's what we need at the moment. Our rooks are okay, but they don't have an open file. And the bishops, they always want more space to look at. So that should be our aim.
Yeah, and perhaps I can give a little hint as well, is that when one has these 4 pawns on the king side against 3 pawns here, the move that Kramnik plays is so common. You know, I call this the squeeze, basically. G4 was played by Kramnik. As Tim Kokesh says, yeah, I mean, I remember this game at the time. I'm so old. I can't remember when it was played. And this was a strategic masterpiece from Kramnik. But G4, I love this move because it cramps these 3 pawns. I mean, what else would you say about this move? Okay, you, apart from opening the king side, but
what I find very interesting in this game is that black kept all his pawns close. So he didn't touch most of his pawns for a while. He could have played f5, h5. He could have done a lot of those moves, but he didn't. And then at some point, he basically invited Kramnik to push his pawns forward. And also he doesn't have any serious counterplay. So Kramnik can play like he usually does, is be very slow and at some point achieve his goal. And that's what, I think what is going to happen.
Okay, so let's just roll this one forward. So rook e6 and now h4. So as you described. Yeah, what I like about this is that Kramnik takes his time.
Yeah, that's quite typical for him.
At least in those days it was.
Yeah. That's true.
He rather changed his style, actually.
Yeah, this is an interesting move also, rook d5.
Go on.
Because you want to support g5, but you have to be careful. And that's, of course, the most tricky thing about these positions. Because rook g1 is a very natural move to push your pawn. But you don't. You should always remember that you're still a bit vulnerable in the center. So some tricks are coming now.
Ah, I see. Or at least I think I see.
Yeah.
Yes. The hoppy knights.
So black was just waiting, but now we have to be careful because there are some threats.
Okay, I can see time is marching on, so let's just roll on fairly quickly. Knight a6. Now this is interesting. A3. So at this moment he decides to prevent the knight coming in here. And then he rolls for... I think this is a bit different when he plays b4 in this position because he does it with tempo.
The knight was on d7 when we started the position.
So the timing is right. And okay, I think this was the second position that you gave in the book. So here we go. White to play. What did Kramnik do next? So let me throw it open to the chat. White to play. Kevin says, by the way, bishop f3 was subtle. Yes, that was a nice move, wasn't it, Thomas?
Yeah, certainly.
So what was the point?
The point is to open up the g file, because at someday we want a rook to attack the king.
Yeah. Okay, so white to play. Operation Crossroads says so difficult.
When you click through the game, it all looks easy, usually, when Kramnik plays.
Absolutely.
But then when you have to sit down for yourself, it's a whole different story.
Very much so, yeah. But, okay, Omkar says G5, maybe. G5. Well, in fact, there's a good response to G5. Because black plays... I've got this analysis written down in front of me, so I'm cheating. I admit I'm cheating. But Rook A8, in this case, gives black some counterplay. This is the problem. And after this, then this rook runs round. And actually, white doesn't have such a great attack. Very interesting. No one's getting this one either. Harry Cominos. Good evening. Rook A1 just to prevent black from playing Rook A8. He's got it right, hasn't he?
It's a great move, yes. Yes, because we are trying to open up a file for a rook, but now we already have a file, so we have to be very careful not to give it away to our opponent. Because then he would generate counterplay.
Yeah. I can see attack helicopter, which is a fine username, has suggested bishop takes G7. Well, that's certainly an attack helicopter move, but I think I'm going to disregard.
Definitely.
Yeah, but we'll disregard that one. Rook A1 is excellent. Okay, I'm going to keep going because I want to look at another example. The rook came back. It's interesting. Black has basically achieved nothing over the past few moves. Rook A7 ties black to this one. Kevin says Thomas tricked us by mentioning the G file. So everyone was like looking over there, and now you switch back over here.
Yeah, you have to zoom out at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm going to zip through because Joel Ra asks, what opening did this come from? I remember.
Queen's Indian, I think.
It was a Bogo Indian.
Oh, Bogo Indian, yeah.
Because I used to play this for.
Yeah, you were there. I was too young.
Yeah, I was there exactly. Yeah. Not exactly, but yeah, not at the tournament, but I remember it. Yeah. So, okay, I'm just going to zip through this. So finally, he broke with G5, sacking a pawn, and this bishop has this wonderful square. So in fact, black's rooks are absolutely dreadful. What I find interesting is that, you know, in a sense, white hasn't done anything special here. Okay, Kramnik's controlled the game. But on the king side, okay, he's just given a pawn. And basically just black has absolutely no defense here. I mean, I went back and I checked this. And black is utterly lost here. There really is no defense. And yet, you sort of imagine, oh, well, you know, this shuts out the bishop. Surely this is okay. But I'm going to zip through this. And yes, F4 is the key move to open the file. And another nice move, King F3. The king is beautifully placed. And at this point, black resigned. I'll just go through the final moves and winning this rook. Absolutely fantastic game. That was an absolute masterpiece from Kramnik, starting with this move G4, which rather cramps black on the king side, so it prevents F5 for a start. And then later on, we had this idea of actually breaking the king side open. But let me give you a few further examples of this cramping move, advancing the G pawn. So this is a fantastic game. Anderson against Hübner from 1981. Seems like black is absolutely fine here. It's balanced position. But g4 is the start of a wonderful strategy from Anderson. So basically what he does, he just wants to advance these pawns as far as possible, and it cramps these 3 pawns. And then much later on, I don't want to go through the whole game, but much later on, basically we get to this position. That f-pawn was prevented from advancing, so Anderson could get in e4, and he broke through here. And then basically because he'd won space on the king side, he was able to break through to these pawns and won very easily, actually. Like this. And yeah, this one is just too fast. All because white gained space, starting with that move g4. I know you'll have to look up the whole game. I haven't got time to go through the whole thing. I want to look at some other examples. So here's a really good example. Botvinnik-Najdorf from 1956. Well, this is a fine bishop. Makes me think of Kramnik's bishop on the long diagonal. So here, what did Botvinnik do? Seems like Najdorf is quite secure. g4. So it starts the process of cramping these pawns and cramping black's king. And yeah, this is actually very, very unpleasant for black, because black can only wait. And you can see he's angling for a breakthrough. I mean, this is a very long game, but basically everything worked for white because Botvinnik had gained space on the king side. And let me give you another one. Yusupov-Belyavsky. Okay, so we've got this pawn majority on the king side. I mean, this is probably about equal, but after g5, you see that one pawn cramps these 3 pawns. Actually, it was a little bit unpleasant. Again, I haven't got time to go through the whole game, but this is a very typical move. And finally, let me see. Okay, this is another Kramnik game, actually. It's not exactly the same, but I just thought it was interesting to see the king in the same position. Okay, this is rather different, but g4 is a really good move here that secured the knight and eventually aimed to break up these kingside pawns. Rather different strategies, different themes and ideas here, but still there's a certain similarity, and I think it's interesting, you know, Kramnik kept that pawn cover in front of the king. Perhaps I'll go through all those games on another occasion, but anyway, I think this is a strategic idea. This advancing this g-pawn, cramping your opponent's kingside pawns, which is actually very, very common.